At the roundabout, take the second exit. At the roundabout, take the first exit.
Joanna Wong there. And Samira, is it likely that when these moratorium end, that landlords...
Certainly once the moratoriums end, a lot of these companies and a lot of these landlords are going to be looking for the money. But as we heard from Deborah Metz earlier, you can evict everyone in the building, but you're still not going to get that money back, which really means that the government needs to step in, or someone needs to really step in to try and help these landlords and these renters from becoming homeless. Because if everyone ends up becoming homeless, there's going to be another epidemic on our hands.
Samira Hussain there. Claire, obviously in Australia there will also be problems and worries for people paying rent. But where you are, there's also a new scheme designed to hopefully help those who want to build their own home. Is that right? Tell us more about that.
That is correct. So the state and federal governments were very, very concerned that we would be heading into a recession.
In 200 meters,
and so they decided
right.
to prop up the construction and building industry by offering a range of grants. If you're successful, you can get grants up to about $69,000 to build a new home. The crazy thing is, and I'm in this position where we have been planning to build long before these grants were announced, and overnight the market has gone crazy. It is incredibly difficult to find land to build on, and people are paying more. People are paying far over the asking price, and it's getting to a situation where the scheme really is looking like it will benefit the construction companies, the building companies, and not those who are looking to buy and build, because they'll be paying over the usual prices. But if you can build a home, your mortgage will be cheaper than your rent, which is an interesting time to be in, because our interest rates are at a roughly 2.6%. So if you can get a mortgage, that will be cheaper than paying rent for an equivalent house.
Got you. It's very interesting to hear about the different schemes, and we're best of luck looking for a piece of suitable land as well. Claire,
thank you.
Yeah, good luck. For the moment, Claire, thank you. There's more coming up on Business Matters here on the BBC World Service to come.
This is the BBC World Service. How are grandmothers in Zimbabwe helping with the country's mental health?
Two women are sitting on a bench in Harare, Zimbabwe. It's a friendship bench, one of 250 special benches across the country on which grandmothers meet with people struggling with their mental health.
We talk to whoever needs help. We'd sit down with them and give them ideas on what to do.
In a country in which doctors estimate 1 in 4 people battle with depression or anxiety, these grandmothers have helped over 50,000 people.
It really evolved from the crisis. The grandmothers start the conversation by simply saying, would you like to share your story with me?
I'm Kim Chakaneta, seeing how this innovative form of therapy started and how it has had an impact, not just in Zimbabwe, but
Restrictions are officially lifted this weekend. We hear from owners on the changes they've made post-COVID, and the supermarkets who have taken some brands of coconut products off the shelves. All the details coming up after the latest BBC World News.
Keep right.
BBC News with
Then
Stuart McIntosh.
take the exit on the right.
President Trump is on his way to Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, where he'll appear at a massive fireworks celebration to mark America's Independence Day. US health officials and local leaders are, however, urging people to limit their festivities as coronavirus infections continue to surge. Cases are rising in 36 of the country's 50 states. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has diluted a law requiring the mandatory wearing of face masks in public. Mr. Bolsonaro vetoed their obligatory use in shops, churches and schools, arguing that this could be unconstitutional. He also halted the distribution of masks to the poor. Congress must now decide whether or not to overturn the veto. 3 senior French government figures, including the outgoing Prime Minister Edouard Philippe, are being investigated over their handling of the coronavirus epidemic. The court says he has fired 31 soldiers accused of being involved in the sexual abuse of young girls. In a statement, General Eduardo Zapatero said he would use all legal means to stop the abuse. A police department in the US city of Denver has sacked 3 police officers after they shared photos showing them mimicking a chokehold used by other officers on an unarmed black man who later died. Announcing the dismissals, the acting police chief in Aurora, Vanessa Wilson, called the pictures a crime against humanity and decency that disgusted her to the core. 2 divers in Mexico have found a perfectly preserved cave with evidence of prehistoric mining from 11,000 years ago. The cave contained evidence of tools, fire pits and the extraction of red ochre. BBC News.
Keeping diners apart and also keeping the volume of music low so that people don't have to lean in to be heard. My colleague Su Ping Chang has been examining what all this means for the restaurants of the future.
I'm in central London where I've come to meet Claire Smith, who runs Core. It's a restaurant that boasts 2 Michelin stars. Now it's lunchtime right now, I'm standing outside and normally there'd be lots of hungry diners filing into the restaurant. Instead, I can see the blinds are down and it's still really quiet around here, if I'm being honest. That's all going to change on Saturday evening though, when Core opens its doors to the public again. And Claire is on hand to give me a tour.
The first thing that will happen as guests arrive, there'll be a hand sanitising station right at the front door. We will be removing all of the bar stools, so there will be no seating at the bar. The next thing, if guests arrive at the cloakroom, we will cover their coats or any bags in a cover, pretty much like you would get a dry cleaner, so that no one's belongings cross-contaminate any other. Then walking into the dining room, we will be removing 2 tables from this space, and many of the tables of 4 will be seated for just 2 guests. The bathrooms now will have a full-time attendant that will wipe down door handles with alcohol wipes and make sure that everything is checked every single time, giving guests notices around saying, providing things if they wish to clean it themselves as well before and after.
This is a 2-star Michelin restaurant. Are you wary that perhaps too much sanitizer might put some diners off?
It may, but I think it's just really important that we are careful.
So how have bookings been?
Really good, actually. Really positive. The literally, since we've announced that we're opening, the phone's not stopped. And we do have bookings through to September.
And what does that say to you?
Well, it says there's clearly an appetite for dining out and people want to go out, which is great, and it's exactly what we need.
Claire Smith there. I've also been speaking to Mutaz Altawil. He's the owner of Syrian restaurant I Am Zaman, which has been expanding its delivery service during lockdown. His restaurant is only about... That means 90 seats?
Yes, 90 seats, and now it will definitely go to 40.
Wow, less than half.
Yes, to the half, yeah.
One of the things the government is asking people to do is take details of customers and have them for 21 days.
I don't know how we're going to do that. We will ask the customer to write down, but we don't know. Sometimes they don't want to give their addresses, their data to anyone. If they say so, we have to follow the rules, that's it.
Going forward, do you think your business model has changed? Are you focusing more on delivery permanently now, or are you rethinking your menu in any way?
Actually, we prefer to have customers seated in here. When you see the business is busy and people are queuing up outside. So this is what makes the business, even people when they pass by, they will see how successful the business is.
So you hope things will just go back to normal?
Of course, definitely, everyone. Until now, the 3 months was a disaster for us, but what can we do?
Both Mutaz and Claire, who you heard earlier, will be serving many hungry diners this weekend. But how can restaurants make sure they're still giving off the right vibe? Let's talk to someone who specialises in makeovers, the kind that get diners opening their wallets anyway.
I'm Stephanie Robson, and I'm a senior lecturer at Cornell University School of Hotel Administration. Tons of research out there about things like what music you play, or what kind of tabletop, what does a plate look like.
We all know the one about, if you want people to eat quickly in a fast food restaurant, you play like trance music or something.
No, actually you play fast classical music. And you want the chairs to be uncomfortable, and you want the tables to be slightly too small.
Well, our government actually wants bars and restaurants to turn the music down because they say that if customers are shouting or raising their voices, it actually could increase the spread of the virus. I mean, what other ways do you think the restaurant experience will change?
Well, I think it's going to change in the short term. We can't have buffets, no self-service. We'll certainly be thinking hard about even shared items at the table. Restaurants that had a very broad menu, they may change even the kinds of items they have on their menu in order to be profitable.
Do you think making diners feel more secure will ensure they're spending more during their visits?
What my research shows is people will stay longer and or spend more money when they are in what I'll call an anchored seat. In other words, a table that's up against a wall or in a corner, as opposed to having it right in the middle of the dining room. What I think we'll see in the restaurant of the future less frequently are things like banquette seating, the upholstered bench with tables all along it. I think people are going to feel less comfortable with those, perhaps not just because of the pandemic, but people always felt a little uncomfortable being so close to the guests next to them.
I guess the point is, you don't have to take extreme measures in order to make people feel comfortable, right?
No, people feel comfortable with what they know. But I will tell you, the thing that makes a restaurant isn't necessarily the food or the beverages, it's the host. I think you have a much better chance. The minute you start medicalizing it or forgetting that it's about that host-guest relationship, that's where you're going to run into trouble.
The unmistakable sound of Ella Fitzgerald ending that report from my colleague Su Ping Chang.
And if you
are listening to this in the UK, particularly in England or Northern Ireland at the moment, maybe let us know what your plans are for the weekend if you will be heading out. The trade body Hospitality UK estimates that something like 53% of pubs and bars and 47% of restaurants will reopen this weekend. They're hoping for some 9 million visits. The sector employs 3 million people. So what sort of weekend will it be? Well, I'm going to ask Claire Negus, who joins us from Australia, because Claire, you've got in many places, you've now got this situation, you've got restaurants and bars open.
At the roundabout, take the first exit.
What was the phrasing you used at the beginning about the concerns from authorities? People would drink too much because their pubs open at 6 a.m, get too close. Yeah, look, that's exactly what happened here when the pubs reopened. I ended up at 2 a.m. picking up some friends who had been out and about the first weekend that the pubs and bars had been open. And my observations were that the men folk had not done particularly well in captivity because they were out in force. The gender split between men and women, I think it was probably 9 men to every female at that time of the morning when the bars had reopened. It was pretty chaotic that first weekend, and it has since returned somewhat to normal. But last weekend, the dance floors reopened. That was the big news, that people could go out to a club and have a dance. And it was an interesting day to watch the Premier and Health Minister address things like, can people make out on the dance floor? What do you do if you're on a dating app and you want to go out and meet someone? It's because a lot of people have not, if you were single prior to the lockdown, You know, it's been exceptionally difficult, but our health minister said the police wouldn't be out with a 1.5 metre ruler, you know, poking people apart from each other. And then the second piece of advice he had from people who were looking to meet someone, he said, just take it slow, you know, don't need to move quickly.
I particularly like your line about being a chaotic first weekend, and you're talking about the nightclubs. Well, take a listen to this, Claire, because we've actually chatted to...
Trying to contain their dancing on the spot where they're standing if they really feel that urge to do a little bit of the sprinkler or some other funky dance moves, but afraid that the dance floor, etc. So on that scene, it's still very much, you know, a good thing that we're moving forward, but it's definitely not as large as what it would be on a normal trading. So we definitely have felt the drop of that, but we are also relieved that at least we've got something coming through.
Requiring people to wear masks in public places and we hear about the 12-year-old violinist that's given a new meaning to the term child prodigy. That's all coming up here on the BBC World Service after the news.
Hello, I'm Justine Green with the BBC News. Native American rights activists have blocked a road leading to Mount Rushmore, where President Trump is due to appear at a big US Independence Day celebration shortly. Leaders from several tribes of the Sioux Nation have objected to the event, which they say poses health and environmental. America correspondent John Sopel.
The president wants to mark Independence Day in the way that things have normally done, with a big firework display and a speech from him in the shadow of four of America's greatest presidents carved into the rock in Mount Rushmore. But more noticeable about the speech, which he will go on about left-wing mobs trying to destroy American history, will be the fact that a Trump-supporting governor in South Dakota has said everyone is welcome, there will be no social distancing.
Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has diluted a law requiring